Hello, Platinum God Games, back with another Skull and Bones tutorial. I'm a Ubisoft partnered creator and Twitch streamer, so check the description below for all my social links, including my Twitch channel and live times. Please also don't forget to hit that subscribe button and check the bell alert here on YouTube so you get notified when new tutorials and videos go live. The purpose of this video, Understanding the Helm, is to help you through all aspects of the helm, its purpose, and what you need to do. So this video will discuss the so-called end loop of Skull and Bones, the black market, pieces of 8, how to acquire them, how to generate them, what to do with them, best practices, upgrading your empire, the acquisition of raw materials to create bootleg gin and rum, which expands into opium, snuff, and imperial jade. I'll talk about what to do with those materials once you have produced them. I'll talk about manufactories, the purpose of them, acquiring them, upgrading them, and defending them. And we'll talk about fleet management and acquisition as well. These are all of the things that I've learned and how I manage my Helm empire after playing Skull and Bones for 3,600 plus hours. So strap yourself in. I've tried to keep this video as short as possible, but there is so much to go through. So I have broken it up into chapters as best as I can, and I've also sped up certain sections as well. So once you hit Kingpin and are prompted to do so, go to Le Pont Muet, the bar in St. Anne, and go and see Unita Nara, who is your first point of contact for the helm. You can find it up the back of St. Anne. When I say first point of contact, the helm will expand into Telok Penjara, and we'll talk about that later. Firstly, Unita will have a bunch of missions for you to do. The missions that are showing here at the moment are later missions because I've played right the way through since closed beta. She also has the black market, which firstly features seasonally rotational weapons, armor, furniture, and cosmetics that can be purchased using a yearly currency. This currency of sovereigns will be retired this year and replaced with Kupfer bars. This yearly currency will be awarded on a tiered structure, paid each week based on how many pieces of 8 you have earned throughout that week. She also features a fortnightly rotation of previous season's weapons, armor, and furniture for purchase using pieces of 8. The black market also features raw materials, rogue materials, weapons, armor, furniture, and loads of cosmetics. But by far, the number one thing that I think is the most important are the blueprints. There are blueprints for ships, including the Sambuck and the Bark. There are blueprints for loads and loads of weapons, armor, and furniture, including some furniture I use on my current build, the Garuda Lightning. There are pieces of furniture that you can buy that are unobtainable elsewhere. There's also the Legacy Cache, which contains previous seasons' weapons, armor, and furniture, and upon opening is random what you receive. But the most important thing are the blueprints for the ammunition crates, enabling you to craft your own ammunition using refined items. Now let's get into the helm. The entrance is through the Smuggler's Hideout. Now, on PlayStation you can actually hold R1 anywhere on St. Anne and Telok Penjara and jump directly into the Helm office. So this is the Helm. If anyone says it's in the Helm, this is where you come. And the Helm consists of the Helm Empire overview. We will be delving into each aspect as we go through. There is the supply network. There is the order registry. And of course, in St. Anne there is the distillery. This is one of the primary functions of the helm, and in St. Anne you produce or manufacture rum and gin. Here I'm manufacturing some White Skull gin, which is the entry-level gin. Then we move on to the order registry, which is one of the first things you'll be asked to do for the helm once you've produced or manufactured some rum. You'll be expected to then deliver these products out to various locations for the reward of pieces of 8. Once you're established, you'll pretty much never use the order registry, but it's a good way to supplement your pieces of 8 early on. Then we have the supply network. Now this is where you come when you want to acquire Helm raw materials, such as poppy, sugarcane, juniper, tobacco, and jade. They consist of roving supply deals where you meet a ship. There's a Helm liaison on land where you purchase. There's the attacks tab, which consists of rogue hunts, and each faction of the 4 types of rogues have different rogue materials you can acquire also. We'll touch on that more later. Then of course there's Fort Plunders. Now some of these can be quite difficult, but that's how you acquire raw Helm materials en masse. Speaking of fort plunders, I have a series of videos called How to Control Forts coming out shortly, so keep an eye out. Now let's get into the Helm overview, and this consists of the map of the entire game as it stands at the end of Season 4. Now it's broken up into areas. This is the Red Isle. Then you move over and you have to unlock this with 5,000 pieces of 8, and this is Africa. And then another 5,000 pieces of 8 unlocks the Indies. Every manufactory that can be acquired on the map will start between level 1 to 4, and they can all be upgraded to level 10. Having said that, that will cost you approximately 1.3 million pieces of 8. Every manufactory has their own unique output of pieces of 8 too, so stay tuned to find out which ones are the best. Now we're going to ignore the leaderboard for now and jump straight over to upgrades. This is one of the most important things, and at the start of each season you want to upgrade the first 4 books here. The total to upgrade all books will be around 500,000 pieces of 8. Now the smuggler operations is a particularly important one, and once we skip through these up to page 7, this is where you can start to manufacture Gold Skull rum. Beyond that, you can then manufacture White Skull gin. It also unlocks Black Lotus Opium on page 15, that's in Telok, Penjara, and Gold Skull gin here in St. Anne. Towards the end of the book, you will be able to unlock the production of Black Snuff, which refines into Silver Snuff. Then there's Imperial Jade, which is refined into Carved Imperial Jade. Next we'll move on to Empire Management. I'll skip through to the first page of the book here. You start out only being able to acquire 8 manufactories. There are 76 in total on the map. As you progress, you need to make sure you are unlocking the pages in this book, or you will start doing events to acquire properties for nothing. You'll be given a Gold Raider cache or Gilded Raider cache instead. Ship management refers to the fact that you can have a fleet of up to 40 ships that you can assign to each manufactory once they're upgraded to level 4 and beyond to automatically collect pieces of 8 for you. This will increase the amount and speed of which that they collect. We'll touch more on the fleet shortly. Now, smuggler skills is another particularly important one for acquiring properties using hostile takeovers. Also will help you through various Helm wages, which we'll talk about later. Very interesting facet of the game. Some of these parts of the game are PvP, person versus person, so other people can fight you for different things. There are many different ways to acquire properties, and I will be explaining them very shortly. Upgrading this book will help you acquire them much faster and help you acquire more silver along the way. The remaining books pertain to each individual faction that exist in the game in the various regions on the map. Upgrading all of these books will increase the amounts that you can produce in those regions, how quickly they can generate pieces of 8 for you, etc. There's also a shortcut to the Empire overview, and that's to open the map and tab R1 once to the right to the Helm view of the map. Once you own manufactories and they are producing pieces of 8, until you upgrade that manufactory to level 4 and beyond and assign a ship for auto collection, you must physically sail out to the location and manually collect the pieces of 8. And lastly, there's the piece of 8 leaderboard. Now this is just for fun, however if you reach diamond status you will receive a gift at the end of the season. Here is where you can check your standings weekly or even seasonally. This is me currently. Now obviously I've blurred everybody's names for privacy reasons, and when you go and view the leaderboard, you can only see the 5 above and below you. You cannot scroll all the way to the bottom or the top. Now these were my standings from week 1 till about week 6 of season 4, where I was manually collecting my pieces of 8 and performing Helm wages. We'll touch on that soon. However, a server error happened and became prominent where the host would leave and you could lose everything, all of your cargo, and end up in a different server, so I stopped. Okay, let's head to Telok Penjara so we can discuss your other point of contact in the Indies. So from the dock, this is how you will find Huma Nara. Huma is Unita's sister and also has a black market, but she generally doesn't have contracts for you to do. She has a privateer contract you can do. But there is also a smuggler's hideout here. Also, we call that the Helm office. So there's Huma. She loves a bit of opium. And here is the smuggler's hideout. As always, you can fast travel using R1 or just jump straight into the Helm office. It contains everything exactly the same as in St. Anne, only that here there is the laboratory where you will craft different items. Here I'm manufacturing some black snuff and I usually put them on for 96 hours at a time, so I only have to worry about it once every 4 days. Let's look at the Helm items in the codex. Now, overall you have poppy, sugarcane, juniper berries, tobacco and jade. In Telok, poppy becomes blue lotus opium refines to black lotus opium. The tobacco becomes black snuff and then refines to silver snuff. The jade becomes imperial jade and then refines to carved imperial jade. Okay, let's go and look deeper into the supply network. Now, this is how you will acquire your items. The easiest ways to acquire it are the supply deals. There are supply deals where you can meet a Helm liaison out on an island. This location changes, so be sure to track it once you've selected the contracts. You can have a maximum of 6 contracts on you at a time for the Helm. Same goes for bounties, by the way. Now, what I'm doing is going through the contracts to make sure that they have all been accepted and that it's tracking to the location that it says it was going to be. Sometimes they will move. It'll display on the board as Car Mangrove, but they have actually moved, and if you don't track it, you can fast travel to the wrong location. Now, supply deals and even roving supply deals can cost you silver. The supply deals will cost you silver, and I'll touch on the roving supply deals shortly. But once you go and find the Helm liaison, you simply go and make the deal with them.
Yes.
So this is probably the easiest way to get small amounts of Helm materials. Then of course we have the roving supply deal. Mind you, all these Helm contracts refresh every 2 hours.
What we spoke of remains our secret.
Okay, let's look at the roving supply deal, but before we do, a word to the wise. Remove Helm materials from your ship cargo because they are heavy and you will be encumbered very fast. Okay, back to the Helm liaison. Now we are going to select all 6 of the roving supply deal. We have no other contracts on us, so we're going to take all 6 at a time. Now, there is a glitch that has persisted for a few seasons of the game. It may not persist in year 2, season 1, I'm not sure. But what happens is when you grab those contracts, sometimes you go to track them and there's no information in it, which means it hasn't been accepted 100% due to server lag. And we've figured out that you can mitigate this and resync the server by purchasing something from a merchant or a hawker. Anywhere you can open a shop like this and just buy one item. I buy a few items from this guy and sell some stuff, but you don't need to do all of this. You only need to buy one item to resync the server with the contracts. Then go to your journal and check and make sure that they all say acquire, deliver, or whatever the requirements are. Hopefully this doesn't persist, but now you know anyway how to avoid or work around this glitch. just in case it happens, including into the new year. Now this, you head to Isle Michelle, and you are looking for this white ship here in the distance. Now normally you can see the Helm icon in the compass. Now being in a Garuda, I could easily just shoot the ship from here, because you have two options at this point. You can sail all the way out to him and pay the silver for each contract. That can be quite expensive if you're doing this many times per day. So I'm going to show you what happens. We sail out, and everything in this game has consequences. So if you purchase from him, there's no problem. And that's an ambush to the right hand side there. We'll deal with that after. That's just bonus material. Alright, so it's only showing 3, but we have 6, right? So I will turn in these 3. Cost me 1500 silver every time. You can do that, or you can just sink him, and you'll get all of the materials that you have in the contracts. It'll complete the contracts. However, it comes with a death mark. Now, the death mark doesn't have much of a consequence these days. Back in the first season, it used to have dire consequences. You have pairs of rogues that would follow you around everywhere constantly and try and sink you, and they were hard hitting. Now, the ambush here that happens sometimes, it's pretty basic. You just need to sink the 3 or 4 ships that come out to attack you, and they will drop a few seasonal items such as crystallized tainted wood and xanthous stone. I don't know if these will be around in the new year. They may be, may not be, and it's not always here. It's just a bonus little fun event. So a quick word about the contracts again. I just took all 4 of the rogue contracts off the board here, and as you can see, one shows sink cargo ship and the others have no information. This is the glitch I was talking about. So we're going to quickly jump to the Hawker in Telok Penjara. We're going to go and see Yanti and purchase something, and that should resync the contracts to the server. You only need 1 item. Now, I generally buy all the water from her. It resets every hour. I say that with apprehension because I forget if it's every half an hour or every hour. Now you'll see the contracts should be fine. See, now they're populated with information, so we can go and do them. Now the rogue hunts can be a little more difficult because some of them are out in rough seas. The different locations also represent the different factions. Now I like to use surrounding events like you just saw me use then to fast travel out there. Now I've got this in fast forward because it can be, you know, time consuming. You don't have to bother with these contracts, but there is a bonus to doing them because I mentioned rogue materials earlier. Now these rogue hunts are another way to collect rogue materials. They come in only 1 at a time. Sometimes 2 if you're lucky, but very small quantities. Searching the ships here, I don't see any of the rogue materials. It's the small ship that has the contract, so that's the only one you need to destroy. You can just run away from the others, but they do give you good foods and bonus items that you'll use on your own ship. They also tend to hold a decent amount of valuable commodities. I recommend storing these in the warehouse and not selling them. I'll talk about this soon, but they come in really handy for something called a buyout. Let's go and have a look at some of the other types of rogue hunts that we have. Alright, so by far the easiest of the rogue hunts is the one here at Isle Michelle in the area of La Escale. It's a hard one to say sometimes. So sometimes you can couple this up with the roving supply deal. You might have 4 roving supply deal and 2 of the rogue hunts. You don't have to sink 2 sets of the ships. You only have to have the 1 contract and they stack. So once you destroy that little ship, that's it. Then that contract is complete. So just as a little pro tip, doing these contracts also is a great way to build up infamy, especially if you're doing the smuggler's pass at the start of every season. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the rogue materials. Here are the ones that I collected during those rogue hunts. As you can see, we have some eel's twine and some orca's mechanism. There's also Gannet's Saltpeter, and there was one that was missing, which is Worm's Breath, which is found at Isle Michelle Rogue Hunts. As always, don't forget to empty your ship. Now, we're going to go and have a look in the codex here at the rogue materials. Now, there are several ways to get these rogue materials. So first you can collect them from the rogue hunts. There are 4 different types of rogues, 4 different types of materials. They can now also be upgraded. These take an hour in the refinery, each one. So you can't get started soon enough. Now, if you don't have many of these, you can go to the black market and you can purchase them. They are quite expensive, but once you've got yourself established as a kingpin and you have your manufactories all up and running, you'll have more pieces of 8 than you know what to do with. So I recommend buying these rogue materials and upgrading them. Now, here's a bonus pro tip that I've wrestled about whether I was going to leave it in here or not. One of my little tricks to make sure that I've always got somewhere to fast travel that's close to port is to get the contract, the bounty contract for Fangs of the Farah. And I destroy Tangina Rabe here, which you can get some sinew string from her from time to time. I keep her head in my warehouse so that I'm always in close proximity to Mother of Shipwrecks and to the Royal Burial Ground. So even when the map is fairly empty, you've got a fast travel point. As long as you don't go and hand in that contract, you need the head on board to do so. But you can keep it in your warehouse, as you'll see here. There she is. And she should stay on the map almost indefinitely. Just a little pro tip. Okay, last but not least, let's look at the Fort Plunders. There are 8 forts on the map that you can get contracts for raw helm materials from, and they are Granby, Haramau, Picoso, the dreaded Mega Fort Euston. There is also Fort Premi, second hardest fort in the game, Fort Duista, when it wants to show up. There's a hostile takeover event for that activity at that time on the map. Fort Duli, the easiest fort, and Grand Fort over here in Africa. Now pay close attention to what each fort rank is, because some of them can be quite difficult if you are not in a high-powered ship. Each fort's rank determines how much helm raw materials you get for each plunder, so they all have differing amounts. Now here is an example. This is Fort Duli, the easiest fort in the game. You can trigger a fort plunder automatically by shooting some of the weak points, like the mortar turrets, the mortar towers, the shotgun walls, or the cannon walls, and it can trigger automatically. If it does not show you this cutscene, you need to sail to the front of the fort and hold the triangle button to manually trigger the plunder. Now, plunders consist of phases that you see at the top, and waves of ships will come out, and you have to sink them to progress to the next wave. It's also time-based, so if you don't sink those ships and you just sail around for a brief period of time, maybe a minute or two, the fort will move on to the next phase anyway, until the wall phase at least. So the quicker you can destroy these ships, the quicker you can finish the fort plunder. Now, the wall phase consists of an already damaged wall that's been bricked over, and you must shoot that wall. Now, the reason why I'm waiting here is I want the enemies to spawn before I start shooting the wall. So we try and get rid of the enemies first. You can see they're spawning in. Now, the fort will shoot up flares. How many flares depends on the level of hostility. So if you look in the top right, there's level 3 hostility, and each phase of the fort you go through, the enemy difficulty should ramp up. Once you destroy that wall, more ships will come out. Eventually you'll hit hostility level 4, and on some of the forts you can have level 15, 16 and 17 ships coming out at you. They will sink you in 1 or 2 shots. Most of the forts are pretty easy. We generally stay away from Mega Fort Euston because it still has some problems and does not behave properly. So I do all the way from Premi right through to Port Delhi. I also have a series of videos coming out called How to Control Forts. So I will show you each individual fort and the ways that you can actually control where the enemies come from and finish each fort within 5 minutes or so. Now we're going back to the Helm. Here we're at the distillery. Now you have the Helm raw materials, let's talk about what you can do with them. First and foremost, you need to refine them. You need to turn the Juniper berries into White Skull Gin. White Skull Gin becomes Gold Skull Gin when you refine that. Don't forget, you need to upgrade Smuggler Operations books pages 7, 8 and 16 to do this. You need to turn the sugarcane into White Skull Rum and then refine that into Gold Skull Rum. A 1-to-1 ratio when it comes to the sugarcane and the Juniper berries. So every Juniper berry will give you 1 bottle. When you start to refine the Gold Skull, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you have 20,000 Juniper berries, you'll get 20,000 bottles of White Skull. When you refine that, you will only get 10,000 bottles of Gold Skull. Now if you're like me and can only play at certain times of the day, I recommend trying to put these on for 24-48 hour kind of blocks so that they finish at the same time you would log on every day. So that way you can go straight to the Helm, put on a different product for manufacturing, and there's no downtime because these run even when you're offline. When you're not playing the game, they still keep producing. So there's 0 downtime. Once you've produced the Helm wares, they become a kind of a currency that you can use for different purposes. As you can see here, we've just gone to see Kingpin John Skurlock in St. Anne, where he has his own shop and sells a bunch of stuff, but we'll talk more about that soon. We're here because of the game's main currency, silver. Now if you cycle inventory to the warehouse and then change the filter down to value total, you'll see that the Gold Skull Rum and Gin is 250 silver per bottle. This is your primary source of silver income. You get rewarded with silver for various missions and contracts throughout the game, but not like this, not in this kind of amount. This will keep you cashed up for a while. Okay, let's jump to Telok, Penjara and talk about the Helm production over there. Now, before we delve right into what we do in the laboratory, I need to remind you that in the Smuggler Operations book, pages 15, 23, 24, 25 and 26 are all Telok Penjara Helm production related pages. You must unlock these in order to produce these products in the Helm. So, same deal as St. Anne. You need different items to craft different things. So as we mentioned, you have raw jade, which becomes imperial jade. You have tobacco that becomes black snuff. You have poppy that becomes blue lotus opium. The imperial jade becomes carved imperial jade, black snuff to silver snuff, and blue lotus opium becomes black lotus opium. You need to refine all of these. Now, when it comes to the Helm supply contracts, I seem to get more for poppy and tobacco than I do for juniper berries and sugarcane. So I put these on for 4 days at a time. As you can see here, 96 hours. Just like in St. Anne. However, what I do is I put them on opposing days. So if I forget about one, I don't have to worry that I've now stopped production on both completely. Maybe only one goes without production for a day or so. Now, down to other business. One of the first things you'll be asked to do for the Helm is to produce some Helm wares and then transport them via the order registry. Now, you will be rewarded with pieces of 8 for doing so. However, yep, there's always a however. Once you select this mission, you cannot fast travel. As soon as you press that button, fast travel is disabled. You must sail all the way. Now, I've recorded this entire mission, but I've sped it up into like 500 times to try and keep the video short. Now, a few things to bear in mind. Track the order straight away to make sure that it hasn't changed location on you. And one of my tricks is to not put those products on board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to travel instead to the nearby island outpost, and that's where I'll load up my ship. Doesn't say I can't dock, it says that I can't fast travel. So that's a little trick in case you get sunk. Now before we hit the waves, pro tip, don't forget to pack stamina replenishing food like grilled beef and meals that give you certain buffs for your status. So in this case I use Godra Godra, which gives me reduced stamina consumption while setting the sails at full trim. That's a 30% buff as well. So don't forget to plot a course. You want to mark the map with R3 to show where you're going. Along the way here we are going to encounter rogue ships that will try and sink us from either of those factions. Each one of those contracts will give you a certain faction of rogues that will spawn on you and attack you. It may be eels, orcas, gannets or worms. They all have different methods of attack. They also are the ones that drop the different types of rogue materials. However, you can't use these contracts to farm for those materials, unfortunately. But here we go, we've encountered our first pair. They're pretty easy to take care of if you've got a decently powered ship. However, early on in the game, these guys will hit you for a 6. They will sink you very quickly, especially that sharpshooter. The bonus is they do drop some raw Helm materials. Now, we're going to fast forward through this. Of course, the whole way we end up with a headwind, so you need to keep turning diagonally. You need to tack and jibe in order to get the sails filled with as much wind as possible. So you can't just sail in a straight line. Now, this particular destination also means that you will cross paths with Megalostari, and if you try and go around Oubliette Outpost, you'll encounter the twins that were on the map at the time when I filmed this. So we want to avoid them. So we're going to sail north a little bit to try and get around that. Last thing you want to do is be in the middle of a Helm mission and end up in a battle with a giant Megalodon. So keep checking the map to make sure you don't veer off course and follow that giant yellow beam sticking up into the sky there, just so you know you don't end up within 1,000 meter radius of Megalostari. Keep an eye out for rogues. There's also a little trick here with the rogues too. The enemies will spawn where the camera is not looking, so if you decide to look backwards or forwards, they can actually spawn in front of you. So your best bet is to keep sailing forwards so they spawn in the distance. If you look backwards and then look forwards again, they can spawn directly on top of you in front of you. So now we've reached our interim destination. We're going to clear the ship of any items that we picked up, and we need to put the products for the order onto the ship. You can easily back out and double check. Now that we're on land, it will tell you exactly how many you have. Whereas when you're sailing, it will constantly tell you that you don't have the required products to complete the order because you left them purposely in the warehouse. So we grabbed the 60 White Skull Gin and set sail again. Now another little tip I recommend when you're setting sail here is use your mortar to have a good high look around to see if there's any rogue ships that have spawned and were waiting for you to leave. I don't see any, so let's go. This is a pretty straightforward mission, but can cause you some grief. And once you've done this, by the way, you'll pretty much never do these missions at all, because I'm going to show you some other ways to acquire pieces of 8 much more efficiently and rapidly than doing these lengthy, time-consuming missions where you can't fast travel. However, I do recommend doing them if you want, you know, a nice sail or you are looking for more immersion in your gameplay. Now, while you're approaching this ship, it's the same as doing the roving supply deals. You sail up to him and interact. and complete the deal. The pieces of 8 do not go into your cargo, they go straight into your bank account, so you will not be sailing with those pieces of 8. Contract's glitching out there, but it's still completed the contract. There we go, 360 pieces of 8. Oh yay, oh yay. I'll try not to spend it all at once. Okay, to further business, I'd like to talk about pieces of 8 and property acquisition, which is one of the meats of the game, especially at the start of a season. Now, to rapidly acquire pieces of 8 to upgrade everything the best way possible, I recommend boss chests and event chests. They contain anywhere from 100 pieces of 8 to 1,000 pieces of 8. The amount of pieces of 8 found in each chest is dependent upon the difficulty of each event. Now, some of these chests also contain large amounts of rogue materials which you also need for upgrading ships. You need pieces of 8 to upgrade the Helm Empire Overview upgrade books. You need it to upgrade ships, manufactories, and it is the currency of the black market where you can buy the majority of your materials. Now, as you can see in these chests, they do contain rogue materials and furniture. These ones we're opening here were convoy chests from the compagnie. Now, they also contain refined helm wares, which you can sell. So there's many reasons why you need to do these events, and do them as much as possible. Now, each boss starts a season at a reasonably low level. So say level 7, and that chest will only contain between say 200 and 400 pieces of 8. As you start to progress and the next boss comes out, it'll be the same boss, but he'll be more difficult and a higher rating of ship, maybe level 13, and he will have between 500 and 700 pieces of 8 every time you open a chest. Then when you get up to the top level boss for that season, he might be a level 16, and it will contain near 1,000 pieces of 8 every time you open those chests. This recovered Exeter chest is a current event at the end of Season 4 where we are now, the founding event, and they contain, as you see, only 200. But that event is rapidly spawning and you can get 2 chests from each convoy every time. So you're guaranteed somewhere between 400 and 600 pieces of 8 every time you do that. Now you're also getting lots of bonus refined materials like the dry sand here. These also you use for upgrading your ships. Now this is by far the quickest way to earn pieces of 8 to upgrade everything. You just need to balance it out between the upgrade books, the manufactories, and your ship, and items purchased in the black market. Okay, back to St. Anne. Now, I want to go back to Skurlock's shop here to talk about what you can also purchase, as I mentioned earlier, with the manufactured and refined helm wares, because this also ties in with manufactory acquisition. And one of the easiest ways and conflict-free ways of acquiring properties is to purchase helm leases. However, you also need to balance that with what other objects Skurlock and Rama have in their shop. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the blueprints that he has for sale and the helm leases. He also sells upgrade parts. Now, a lot of these blueprints are absolute musts for furniture on your ship and weapons. I recommend buying every single blueprint that you ever come across in the game. Never skip up on the opportunity to purchase and own a blueprint, so then you can craft those things whenever you need them. Now, one of the most important things here, and I can't recommend this enough, is keep your manufactories going constantly so that you can buy these helm leases. There are 19 properties in the Red Isle. There are 23 properties in Africa. And you can purchase leases for both of those, or you can purchase an open lease. Now those open leases you can use at any manufactory on the map. And these, as you can see, I'm opening them up to show you, this is only 7,500 Gold Skull Rum, whereas this is 10,000 Gold Skull Gin. whereas the Africa is 10,000 white skull gin, and therein lies yet another balancing juggling act so that you can purchase these leases. Now, I recommend using your gold skull rum to purchase all of the Red Isle leases. Use your white skull gin to purchase all of the Africa leases, and worry about the rest in Telok, Penjara. And here we are now in Telok, Penjara. Now, we're going to go and see the Kingpin here, also known as Rama. So, she sells a few different items and blueprints as well, and she sells leases for the Indies and open leases also. Now, the leases for the Indies will cost you 10,000 Black Lotus Opium. However, like Skurlock, she also sells upgrade parts which you may need to purchase, and that is 2,000 Black Lotus Opium. Skurlock uses Gold Skull Rum, 2,000 of that. Now, Rama also sells open leases for 10,000 Silver Snuff.
Everyone is looking at you.
And this is what I recommend you use for purchasing your open leases, because you don't need to buy any leases technically for the Indies if you can use open leases anyway, therefore freeing up your Black Lotus Opium to purchase the blueprints, the upgrade parts, and to convert into silver, because you can actually sell your refined Helm wares, Black Lotus Opium, Silver Snuff, and Jade to Rama. Now, the Black Lotus Opium and Silver Snuff is the same as Skurlock. It's 250 silver per item. However, the Jade is only 125, so hold on to your Jade until they either adjust the price, whatever, as you see here. So don't sell an area's Helm products to the rival Kingpin, it'll only be worth half the price. Okay, the next way to acquire properties, and by far the absolute easiest way, is called a Manufactory Buyout. Now, these are available for 20 minutes, and once purchased, they have a 4-hour cooldown. If you already own the property, you will receive a Gilded Raider cache, and we will talk about the Gilded Raider caches very soon. Now, buyouts may consist of anything from commodities through refined wares to relics that you obtain from doing plunders of settlements and forts, a military relic or a fine relic from plundering a settlement. All of those different commodities have come up in buyouts before, which is why I stock them. It may also cost you 30, 50 or 70,000 silver. Either way, try not to pass up on this opportunity to obtain a property or a Gilded Raider cache. Now, in this instance, they only want 50 of the Iroko plank. Now, something worth touching on is this overseas smuggler. You can find him at various outposts at any given time throughout the map. You can also get Helm supply opportunities through him, so your roving supply deals, rogue hunts, and fort plunders. Now, there's also another little guy as well called the Rogue Warlord. Now, the Rogue Warlord used to be dotted around the map as well, however, he was useless. You would go to him and he would have no menu or any interaction really besides a brief conversation telling you he's got nothing. Now they are actually active and you can access Helm supply opportunities through him too. Now, sorry for the detour, I'm going to open the Gilded Raider cache that we just purchased to show you what the contents are, and I'm also going to open a further 10 so that we can see what the drop rate percentage of open Helm leases are. Now, these chests guaranteed contain 450 pieces of 8, an enhanced repair kit 2, and some Helm materials. Now, any chests that carry over into the new season will not contain pieces of 8. Any of these Gilded Raider caches, Silvery Raider caches, etc. Devs have made that very clear, so they will instead be converted to Kupfer bars, which will be the new yearly currency. As you can see, these also contain a random amount of raw Helm materials and produced Helm wares, as well as silver. Now, only 6 caches in, we received an open Helm lease. And by the time you finish opening these, you'll have enough raw materials that would equate to completing all of the necessary Helm supply network contracts in a 2-hour block, possibly even more. So there's lots of refining in there. These caches are worth a lot. Open leases can be used on any property on the map. Now, the next easiest way to acquire manufactories is a legendary heist. They appear in multiple locations around the map, and the video I will be showing you was taken from the legendary heist here above Kampong Sabur in the Indies. Now, some of these appear in awkward locations out the front of Megafort Euston and behind in the open seas. I recommend not doing the ones in the lower parts of the Indies. Instead, stick to the one here next to La Bastide in the Red Isle, below the Red Isle, just below Fort Louis, and to the left of Royal Burial Ground. They are much easier. Allow me to explain the legendary heist. It is a 3-person event, a co-op event, that consists of a cargo ship carrying a chest. It has a small escort surrounding it. Now you need to destroy that cargo ship and steal the chest. The other 2 people in the group are to support the person carrying the chest back to the nearest pirate den. That pirate den will be told to you by the game. It's usually in the area that the heist originated, so in this case it will be Telok Penjara. Now, a few pointers on the easiest ways to complete these, which is I recommend taking out the healing ship, the repair ship there with the plus sign on it first, so that you're not pedaling uphill or treading water, wasting your time, and the other ships just get repaired. Also take out the grenadiers, of which one just launched 4 mortars at me. They will cause flooding damage very quickly. Get rid of them as quick as possible. These ships also drop a decent amount of loot as well. They drop some great items that are few and far between in farming. Roselle, magnetite, and Greenheart plank. But now you've got the gist of it, let's speed this up a little bit and get to the rewards. The same thing applies. This is a property that will be given to you, a manufactory that will be awarded upon completion. Now, if you already have the property that would be offered, you will get a Gilded Raider cache instead. Just a recap. It says deliver the loot. If you're the person carrying the chest, the other 2 players need to support you. Now, there is the possibility when you join these legendary heists that other 2 people join the heist and don't participate. They are still included in this, but they will basically get a free property or a free Gilded Raider cache. Only one person needs to sink the convoy ship, which can be frustrating because leeches do happen. People purposely join the event with no intention of sinking the cargo ship or assisting another player. Don't worry about it, just do it anyway. You will be attacked by rogues on your way back to port, so do your best to just avoid conflict and get back to the den as soon as possible to claim your prize. Now, something else worth noting is that upon joining the event, if you have any hostility, fast travel will not be an option and you'll have to sail from where you are to the starting point of the heist, which is sometimes why you will see people sitting at port. Although they're in the event, they're not actually making any moves to come and support the person attacking the cargo ship, so you can miss out on it this way, so be aware of that. However, some people do this intentionally every time there's a heist, and you'll come to know who those people are in your server, but it is a pirate game after all, like it or not. Next up, we have hostile takeovers. There are 2 types of hostile takeover that you may participate in. The first one we're going to talk about is the red one here. This is a PvP, person versus person event, where you have to fight waves of ships in order to acquire that manufactory. Now, other people can actually come in and fight you for it. Then there is the solo hostile takeover, where you are on your own and you just fight waves of ships. They've added many more of these to the map to reduce the PvP, However, it's enter at your own risk when it comes to the red hostile takeover events. Having said that, there are 18 territories and 76 manufactories in total, so I recommend trying to jump into every event as soon as possible. At the start of a season, there will be fights, there may be tears. Either way, it's all good fun and laughter. So I've joined a solo event here just to show you what it's all about. In regards to the PvP hostile takeover, try not to take it too seriously. It can be frustrating having properties taken from you if you need it, but that's why they have Helm leases and solo events as well. And be warned, some people enjoy the PvP, so they do join those events even though they don't need the property. Just be aware of it. Now, the hostile takeovers have a progress bar on the right hand side, as you can see there. And once you've upgraded all of the pages in the Smuggler's Skills book in the Empire Overview, attacking and destroying other ships and towers helps the progress bar fill up quicker. So this just consists of a few waves of ships that will keep appearing, and you just have to survive until that percentage bar fills up. Then the property is yours. So let's rush through this. Speed it up to 500 times. I chose a doozy to demonstrate. This happens to be out the front of Ooston Capital, next to Megafort Ooston. So this is heavily guarded and one of actually the most guarded capital in the game. So it was quite spicy. So pro tip, always try and take out the mortar towers first and keep your distance from cannon towers. Whenever you see ships, try and take out the Grenadier, which is the one with the big red box on the front of the ship. And there you have it. Now, the solo events only award you with a silvery Raider cache. They don't give you the Gilded Raider cache. Only the hostile PvP takeovers give you the Gilded Raider cache. They both give you properties though. Okay, let's talk about collecting pieces of 8 from manufactories and fleet management. As mentioned earlier, once you upgrade a manufactory beyond level 4, you can assign a ship to it for automatic collection. Now, once you upgrade the ship management tab in the Helm Empire Overview, the ships can increase the capacity of pieces of 8 able for collection. So a level 10 and beyond ship will carry 976, whereas the Garuda next door will only carry 384. Now bear in mind that this is the rank of the ship, not the upgrade level of the ship we're talking about. Now, you can own 40 ships in your fleet. I say 39 because the dhow, the little fishing vessel you start the game in, I wouldn't really count that. Now, I have a nice mixture of all of the different types of ships in the game. So I have a mixture of snow ships. I have about 4 snow, 4 brigantines, 4 brigs, 4 junks, 4 Garudas, 4 Padawakangs, 4 Sambucks, etc. Now, I recommend doing what I've done, and that's buying a healthy mixture of all of the ships in the game, because not only can you assign them for automatic piece of 8 collection from the manufactory, you can unassign them and sail these ships. So you can upgrade them and you can store furniture, weapons and armor on them. You can design them for specific purposes such as convoys or fort plunders or certain bosses. So don't just buy the one kind of ship, mix it up a bit. Have a couple of generics. I have about 5 Sambucks, still generic, that I can easily sell. There's no upgrades or anything done to it. So I'm not going to be missing out if I decide to sell that ship because new ships have become available. Something else I'd like to briefly touch on as well is all of the chests that you open may contain weapons, armor and furniture. Now, if you don't need this, don't salvage it, save it in the warehouse, because until you actually have a fully functional fleet of 39 ships that have been equipped with weapons, armor and furniture to reach rank 12, you're going to need that furniture. Now, these ships don't see actual combat when they are transporting pieces of 8. it is basically imaginary. It's the level of risk. So the recommended rank of the ship needs to match the ship rank that you're assigning to that property, or there's a chance that you can lose pieces of 8 and have your ship damaged. All you have to do is pay some silver at the property where it's assigned to repair it, so you won't lose the ship. However, this also means that you don't have to match the weapons, armor and furniture to the ship and its perks. So you don't need torpedo furniture to match the torpedoes that you shoved on the ship. So use whatever weapons, armor and furniture is available to get that ship's rank up to the desired level that you want. Now, as far as armor goes, you can find a Royal Custodian by doing convoys. That's what I shoved on all of my fleet ships until I need them. Then I change the armor to suit the purposes of the ship. Now, the Royal Custodian seems to drop like confetti from various convoys that you'll see throughout the map. So I recommend stockpiling that. And again, any other green, grey, blue, purple weapons and furniture that you find along the way, and just shove them on the ship. As you start to upgrade your ships, you can cull them down to the point where you only keep the best weapons and furniture, and you can use them whenever you want. I also store seasonal items of weapons, armor and furniture on certain ships if I'm not using it at the time, and I name the ship accordingly with abbreviated ways of telling what is on that ship. Now, let's discuss the generation of pieces of 8 and something called a supply run. As I mentioned, each property has a certain hourly generation of pieces of 8. Now, if you look to the bottom right there, there's something called a supply run, and this property requires 220 poppy. So something else you can do with your Helm materials when you acquire them is you can physically take them to the property, whatever that property requires, and submit it. This will speed up the generation of pieces of 8. Once you've fully upgraded it, this will last for 20 minutes. So you will see that the manufactory will then get a boost, an hourly rate boost, and you can generate pieces of 8 much quicker. So as you see, the countdown timer for 20 minutes, and you can see the property is visibly showing you in person and on the map. Now look at that hourly rate, 1,315. That is huge. So you can really quickly fill up the properties if you keep performing supply runs. However, it's going to cost you a lot. So you'll be constantly doing plunders. Now be careful of which property requires which Helm raw material. Now, some of these properties are worth more than others. They've recently introduced Jade into the properties, and they seem to be quite high paying. So 102 is a good amount, 84 is not so good. As you start getting down into the 70s, you know, we're getting worse. But there's a few properties in Africa that are up around the 100 mark. The best being La Colonie here at 116. Now, Hovo Hovo back in the Red Isle is the highest paying property on the map. When you get up to the Indies, there's a few up here that have Imperial Jade, and they're 111 an hour. There's a few that actually are over 100 an hour, 103. Houston dropped, it was a decent one, that's now only 108. That used to be in the previous season 130 something. 125, I think Kampong Sabur is the best in the Indies. So once you can acquire, use your open leases to go and buy those properties straight away. Sail out to it. Grab your Helm lease and physically sail out to the property and acquire that property and start upgrading that property first. I recommend before you upgrade properties, go into the tab where it shows you the hourly rates. When you first get the property, it will show you from 1 to 10 level upgrade, so you can see what the final upgrade hourly rate will be. Okay, so let's talk more about auto collection and funding your manufactories. That's right, they're not free. Now, if you look at these little sections with the yellow line here, these are auto collect sections. Once you own every property in that territory, as it's called, you can now hold square on the map and collect all of the pieces of 8 from those regions or territories, as you can see there. Now, yeah, the game takes a 5% tax off you, but that's okay. Now, the property will be red with a red triangle on it when it is run out of funding. Every manufactory has a different rate of hourly generation of pieces of 8, and it requires a different level of funding also. Now, some of them have 2 available, some of them have 3 available, and obviously the higher the rate of generation of pieces of 8, the more expensive it gets. Now, the properties are funded for 2 days and 1 hour. Now, you can choose these rates to top up the manufactories so that you can control when they run out of funding. However, if you have a rate selected, you cannot alter that selection. So if I accidentally select the wrong amount when the property has no funding, you have to wait for that property to run out of funding so that you can change the hourly rate of generation. So don't make any mistakes there. However, I do recommend, as I mentioned with the production of Helm wares, try and do it at the same time when you log on. So every 2 days at 6:30 in the morning when you log on and change your Helm ware production, you make a point of going through and taking a few minutes to top up all of your manufactories so they never stop producing either. Let's talk about a Helm wager. Now, if you let all of your manufactories reach full and then sail out manually to collect from them, there is a 10% chance upon collection that you will be offered something called a Helm wager. Now, this gives you the opportunity to double your pieces of 8 that you have collected simply by sailing from the point of origin to a destination. Sound easy? Yep, there's a catch. 5 other people may join this and try and steal your pieces of 8 from you. So this is a PvP event, and you will have rogues on you the moment you start collecting pieces of 8. That's just something that happens anytime you got pieces of 8 on board. So here I'm going to participate in a Helm wager. You can continue to collect pieces of 8, by the way. Once you get offered the Helm wager and you accept it, you can continue to sail around the map and collect more and more pieces of 8. Or you can sail around the map and collect as much pieces of 8, then let your properties fill up until they're full. The property must be full to be offered a Helm wager. So if you go around and collect a maximum of 350,000 pieces of 8, let some of your properties fill up and then collect, and you get offered a Helm wager, that will be the maximum amount. And that's how you actually compete to stay on top of the leaderboard. That and doing supply runs to fill the factories up faster. Now, a couple of pro tips. You can have some friends of yours in the server jump into the Helm wager as soon as you do it to fill up the spots so that hostile players can't try and steal your 8s. The other thing you can do is wait until the server's almost empty. That's another good time to run your pieces of 8. These days people don't care too much about it, but again, some people love PvP, so they may rush to jump in. Now here we go, here's the offer of the Helm wager. This is sailing from here to Great Akuta, which is nearly 9,000 meters away, and we accept it. I only have 27,000 on board here, so it's basic Helm wager. It is not high risk. It's not going to attract a lot of attention. Some people may join the wager. That is my friend who sailed along the way. Some people may join the Helm wager just to have a look. I like to have a look at some of the Helm wagers just to see what the amount is, but I do not attack people when they're doing a Helm wager. In fact, when I'm live on stream, I actually try and help people that are doing Helm wagers, and we protect people within the community so that they can successfully double their 8s. it is a PvP game in various aspects, so if you're in for that sort of an adrenaline rush, which bear in mind it is, I've done a $1.4 million Helm wager in Season 2, so I was looking at collecting 2.8 million 8s, and I had some people hunt me down and try and steal it off me. What an adrenaline rush that was. I survived, but damn, that was scary. Something worth noting here when I open the map and show you, the property receives a free supply run for actually triggering a Helm wager. Also, as you can see, there's many other properties I could have continued to collect from until I was offered that Helm wager. I got offered 3 properties in. That doesn't always happen, so just be aware. Worst case scenario, you don't even get the offer. Sometimes that's happened. That's how I ended up having the big Helm wager, because I sailed around the map 3 times in the space of a week, and I was not getting the Helm offer at the time. I've sped this up to like 500 times just to show you the journey, but this is it. Basically just trying to sail as fast as I can across to my destination, keeping an eye on the map. Keep using your stamina buffing food, Godra, and replenishing your stamina. And it should be pretty smooth sailing. Again, it's not a large amount, but you will get attention if you join a Helm wager or perform a Helm wager that's, you know, over 100,000 pieces of 8. So here we go. Not far away from the destination now. Here we go, home safe. Now the amount that was shown in the ship at the time is the doubled amount. So there we go, 27,000 pieces of 8. And that's a Helm wager. And lastly, the last 2 sections of the video, you need to defend your manufactories. Occasionally a manufactory defense will pop up. This is not unlike doing a hostile takeover. They come in waves, it is a timed event, and you simply need to prevent your manufactory from taking too much damage, or it will become disabled and you will not be able to generate any 8s for a certain period of time. Now, these originally used to have a 13-hour consequence, and you could not fast travel to these. You had to leave 5 minutes early from what you were doing, go to the nearest outpost and physically sail to the event. Now you can fast travel to it, and there is no consequence whatsoever for not doing it. However, if you do it, you will receive a Gilded Raider cache, so there is an incentive to do it. They also used to have faction ships that would attack the various locations. So you would have compagnie ships attacking a DMC manufactory, and they all used to drop a lot of silver. Now these guys, they're from the Shadow, only drop ammunition. Now the devs of the game decided that they were going to reduce the cooldown, or the damage period, the decommission period of your manufactory down to 4 hours. And then one day they just decided, no consequence. I'm not sure if people complained about it or not, but I enjoyed it the way it was. I liked getting a whole bunch of silver and infamy, and getting a Gilded Raiders cache for my efforts. Now, what I'm showing you here also is a way to try and control the action. I like to use my mortar to hold that at maximum range, so you get a good view of the entire area. It works well with rockets as well, but you don't quite get the same view that you do when you have a mortar as your auxiliary weapon. Now I'm going to jump this straight to the end of the event. You don't need to see the whole thing, it's basically the same thing on repeat. A few more ships come out towards the end. Instead of 1 pair, 2 pair come, and then 3 pair come, but it's a fairly easy event. And there you go, Gilded Raider cache and some silver. Now, there is one more thing to talk about, and that's it for this particular video. You've almost learned everything. So the last thing is a Spectral defense that was introduced in Season 3. Now this consists of the ghost ship, the Mangadin. Now sometimes this can glitch out, but that's pretty much been ironed out. So you're facing a boss. Now you don't get the Gilded Raider cache, instead you get a chest from the Mangadin that does contain some items that are only obtainable from doing that particular boss. So we're going to take you through this event right now. He can be quite difficult, so I recommend coming in a decently powered ship. The normal Mangadin when he first came out was only a level 6, but he still had some punch. Now this is a level 12 ship, and as always you need to shoot the weak points of this ship. I say as always for people watching this video that might know the ghost ship. But he has some weak points at the front sides of his ship. You can see the red glow there. He is immune until you shoot them. Now sometimes you can shoot them and he'll sail away and the defense will be over. Sometimes you can try and shoot them and he never becomes vulnerable, he stays immune. That's when it's glitched out, which occasionally does happen. But he does expose his weak points, and he will use some rockets on the fort, so you do have to defend the fort quite heavily in this. Those little ships aren't too bad, they're fairly easy to take care of. They can hit quite hard, but as you can see they generally don't attack you. The ones you need to watch out for are those little kamikaze ships. Now you try and move away from him. We are in a Garuda, a sharpshooter, so you want distance. You can use whatever ship works best for you. But this guy will burn you when you're up close, and he will fire rockets into the second half, sometimes even in the first half of his health. But again, he's not overly aggressive, so you should be able to take care of this. When he does start using rockets on your manufactory, he does quite considerable damage rather rapidly as well, so don't worry too much about the other ships. Destroy the little ones that are going to ram into you and blow up. They will do big damage to you. Other than that, sit back and enjoy the ride and just focus on destroying the Mangadin. When you actually do destroy him, it will conclude the event. So there you go. I took quite a bit of damage there just from one of them. Now if all three of them hit you, you can almost sink. So again, once you destroy the ghost ship, the event will finish and you have successfully defended. Here we go, he's almost done. We've almost destroyed all his weak points. Use your crew attacks when they are available. Something else worth noting, in every manufactory defense that you do, another incentive to do them is that we've talked about supply runs, and when we did the Helm wager, it automatically buffed the property for 20 minutes. That happens here as well. So once you defeat the Mangadin and you've defended the property, don't forget the chest that he drops. You also get 1,000 pieces of 8. And once I've defeated these little ships, I'll show you the property gets a boost to the generation of pieces of 8. Well, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please hit that subscribe button and check the bell alert so you know when a new video goes live. I will be releasing a bunch more videos on how to play Skull and Bones. and get the most out of your experience. Remember, I also stream on Twitch, so check the description for a link to my Twitch channel and see my live times. And don't forget, this video is divided into chapters, so you can always swing back and view other content much more easily. But I do recommend watching the whole video in one go. There you go, you could see the property buffed and the contents of the Spectral Defense chest. We get some more pieces of 8, some Helm wares, and a few other items including silver and ethereal ashes. Again, thanks for watching the video. I'm Platinum God Games, and until next time, game like a god.